Hola, animigos! Welcome to Keyframers, the animated collaborative coding livestream where we bring imaginative user interfaces to life. I'm your host, Stephen Shaw, but you may know me as @Shashaw.
And I'm your host, David Khourshid, also known as David K. Piano.
Together, we are coding compadres, animation amigos, Boolean buddies, and keyframe companions.
Yeah, so we're going to be creating a flipping animation from scratch live using
Watch your
HTML.
language. Hold
Okay,
on.
I'm
This is
sorry.
a family show.
Yeah, well. But anyway, we're going to be using HTML, CSS, and maybe even some JavaScript. And also, we're happy to answer any questions you may have, such as why Shaw is so strict on language. So you may reach out in the chat or comments.
Please do. I'm excited today, David. I think this is going to be a fun episode. Uh, yeah, that's enough dilly dallying. Why don't we? Is that okay for the language filter?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So today we're looking at this nice piece from Framer Motion by Matt Perry, where it's showcasing an animation. Like some kind of notification pop up or something coming into a notification panel or something along those lines. Um, and this is a type of animation that looks great for an animator to mock up, but then actually getting it into your website or whatever and trying to make it perform it and feel right and all those kinds of things, it's kind of a pain.
Right.
So how do we approach this, David?
Well, another interesting thing about the animation is how basically, and in the original tweet too, he says that it's animation on two individual axes. And you could see that. You could see that it's animating separately on the Y and X axes, presumably by different easing curves or something like that. And so we're going to discuss how we do that too. But the simplest way to do that with CSS is by using nested layers. And basically, you apply a transition, which is a transformation, to each layer. And so one of them would be the X layer and the other one would be the Y layer. And we could sort of determine which one we want taking care of what. Like, do we want the parent layer taking care of the X axis or the Y axis? We'll play around with that and see which one works best. Now, typically when you see an animation like this, you'll see that I don't know, you could pretty much use Framer Motion or something like that because one school of thought is, why do we have to force the developer to make two divs? And because of that thought, it basically becomes a do everything in JavaScript because JavaScript could individually know and calculate each of the positions at every single frame and be able to be like, okay, we're going to change the X value to this, but the Y value to a different easing and do it all and have those computations work at 16 frames a second. And, or wait, no,
16 frames per second?
16, no,
we
that's
can do that.
so
We can handle it.
Oh, Mondays. Okay, 60 frames a second. But the problem with that is now you have to learn an entire framework. And I'm not saying that Framer Motion is not good. In fact, it's probably one of the best animation frameworks in React. Or I'd like to say it's one of the best animation frameworks in spite of React because it's doing a whole lot of really, really creative things behind the scenes to work around a lot of the limitations of React in order to create really easy to create performance animations. So if you're new to Framer Motion, I definitely recommend you check that out. But anyway, we're going to try to do it without Framer Motion. That was the point I was trying to get at. And we are going to do it using CSS and a little bit of JavaScript just so that we could talk about the internals, how this is going to work using the flip technique, which we have covered in previous episodes.
That's right. Yeah, you'll hear us talk about flip a lot, and it's a great approach for exactly this kind of animation, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this. This is a relatively simple example. Like just looking at it, there's not a lot of visual clutter of like these blurred out backgrounds and icons and everything, so that we can really showcase like what flip is doing and ways you can use layers and elements to accomplish these kinds of effects. Personally, I'm impressed. Matthew Perry from Friends is developing now. I think that's a great career development for him. I'm sure he gets that a lot, but yeah, anyway. Okay.
I've actually never seen Friends,
Hey.
but or I've seen a couple episodes.
I think it's impossible not to have seen Friends by this point. Did you change my beautiful gradient colors?
I did. I made it green. I don't want to get sued by the Framer team, okay?
Is that Framer copyright
Yes.
brand material? Okay. All right.
Yeah, so I changed it to something else.
Sure. All right. We can make it
just so we have a
putrid,
touch of difference, you know?
Sure. Plausible deniability. That's what we're about here. Okay. So yeah, we really haven't done much setup here. I just kind of got a nice background in here with radial gradient, which is super fun. And then we've got our starter notification,
which is nothing right now.
Yeah, there's nothing. So right off the bat, let's just go ahead and pull in. This was a great animation we did a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago. Who knows? Flip transition with CSS variables and Borderradius. I've got the link for that in the description. You can check out that episode. We really broke down the flip technique in this one and showcased a new way to do flip animations with CSS variables. So we've got this little helper flip function here that we'll just copy out that getRect as well. And we'll paste that in there. We'll use that in a little bit. But if you're interested in learning more about the specifics of that, we'll dive a little bit into it. But check out the full episode for that. It's
yeah, and we'll be explaining that. Yeah. All right. So, by the way, just as a little setup, I put everything in an app, and the app has a data state of small because I'm terrible at naming things. But this basically shows when the notification is just down there by its lonesome, right before you click it. So.
Okay. So you've got app, data state small, and then okay. All right. Enough.
State equals small, and then we could style it when it's small, and then style it when it's large. And this is a technique that you see us doing in a lot of our animations, where we basically go state by state. The animations, the transitions between those states come at the end. So from the get-go, we're just going to be doing it one state at a time.
Yeah. So one thing that you alluded to a little bit in the intro is using layers and kind of animating separate pieces of it with these different elements. So one technique we've used a lot is a BG element, and that'll be important for us to do. Added that into the HTML here. So data state small. Notification. Oh. Okay, it's got notification white. Setting up a grid template.
Yep.
Which is cool.
That would have been cool if grid template, like if we could do nested objects within, I don't know. I'm going to talk to the W3C talk about that. But anyway, what I was thinking is we have this, well, actually, no, this should be, no, never mind. All right, I'm not going to do that because, wait, no, yes, we are. Okay, so I'm going to do large, and one more. This is going to be small and easy. So when it's small, it's in that small area over there. And when it's large, it's in that large area. And we can just say, watch, it's going to be magical. Grid area, small. And it's going to go to the bottom, hopefully. Oh, wait. Never mind, don't wait.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting.
Okay, so we have our, is it grid template area?
Grid template areas, yeah.
Okay, large, small. So it should be at the small area, but right now it is not.
Grid area. All right, so let's grid template areas.
Oh, wait, columns. Yeah, I have my columns. Oh, I'm a dummy. Here we go. There seems to be a mismatch between.
Did you change? Oh, your rows and.
Yeah, so it should just be that, and it should be. Okay. So misspelling.
Hey, check that out. Nice. And we can add a little bit of. Well, no, we don't want to add.
You want to add padding?
Well, we don't want to because the large notification fills up the whole area. So
here's something you could do that I like to do, even though you add an area?
Just add a margin?
You could do that.
We're flipping anyway. Yeah.
All right, fine. Yeah. All right, so we have it down on its corner. Maybe make the row a little bit bigger. Are you going to min-max that? I completely get lost when I have to deal with min-max.
Yeah, it's...
Hello, everyone watching. We have 14 watchers. It's awesome.
Nice.
And so, funny enough, Jason Elliman says, get wrecked. Thought you said get wrecked. Yeah, funny enough, we do have a get wrecked.
Makes a little more sense in text form. But yeah.
Yeah, get wrecked.
Yeah, full library coming soon.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so we've got our notification in data state small. We've got our notification in grid area large. All right, let's just go ahead and implement a toggle between the two. All right, so we'll say const L notification equals document selector notification. Spell it this time. L notification. Add event listener. Click. We're going to need that.
Okay, so basically we're just adding a thing which is going to change the data state. So that's dataset.state of the app. And it's going to change that from small to large to small, I'm guessing. We're just going to alternate between the two.
Yeah, I don't think we should make it more complex than that. Actually, rather than data state, should we, on the app, should we do it on the notification itself?
Yeah, sure.
Data
might make things
data
simpler.
Expanded. Okay. Yeah. So and then we can just toggle that attribute. What's that?
Why not data state?
Sure, if you want to.
I'll tell you why. Yeah, let's go to data state, because we have data state equals small, data state equals large, but there could potentially be others. Let's say that the user decides to dismiss it, then we need data state dismissed, right? So,
yeah,
but we won't do that here, but we'll, yeah.
So,
all right, so
there we go. Toggle between the two. Got to fix our styles here to just target notification rather than app.
So we're probably going to leave that or that. All right.
And just funsies. Okay, nothing's happening. Let's check the console here.
As expected.
Unexpected. Oh, yeah, I got to do my ternary, right?
All right, so when you click, it goes from small to large to small. Perfect. Yeah. So this is, we're pretty much done. We even, we were able to do it faster than the original animation. Like, forget it going smoothly from one to the other. It happens instantaneously.
Yeah,
and
now
the
that's
user
performance.
That, yeah, super fast. Maybe we should do all our animations like that. Just
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Transition duration 0. Yeah.
Exactly. Prefers super fast motion.
Prefers no motion. Okay. So, yes, thank you everyone for pointing out my ternary in the chat. All right, so let's see. So for our flip, well, yeah, should we start there with adding the flip? All right, so
yeah, let's start there.
let's break down the function a little bit. So flip, you pass in a function that does something. And then the first element and the last element, in case you're like replacing an element with another element in your do something,
or doing a shared layout transition.
Right.
Yeah. But in this case, we're going to default to the first elements.
Right. So we'll call flip here with this as our do something. And then first element is going to be L notification. And last element will also be L notification. Then you can say in notification do for content attribute style. Well, we should get some let's see, something off script.
Is it? Let's see.
Getting an error somewhere. Get last spell is not a function. Oh, okay. We don't need to provide anything there.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I added that before element. These CSS variables are being applied on the style attribute of the element.
It's also in the console if you want to see it there. Whatever you prefer.
Yes. Sure.
It's a little bit easier to read in the console.
It can be, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just for debug. We don't need that in there. Great. So big. All right.
Just adding something for later, but yeah, that did nothing. Which
right, we don't.
Okay.
Yeah. So these CSS variables, we've got DH, DW, DX, and DY. You want to break those down a little bit?
Sure. So the most common ones that you'll see are DX and DY, and that just denotes the change in the x-axis and the y-axis. So if it moves to the left, then the DX is going to be negative, yeah, because you're moving to the left. So in this case, when I click, it'll say, at least in my screen, it says DX is 727 pixels, which means it moved, the left point moved from whatever it was right 727 pixels to where it is now. And DY is pretty much the same thing, where we're moving from the bottom and we're going up. So, starting from the bottom, subtract 454 pixels on my screen, and now we're here. So that's your DX and DY. Now, DH and DW are a little bit different because those aren't pixel measurements. They're proportional measurements. So we have DW saying that it barely increased in width, at least on my screen. Well, actually, no, that's expected because we have 1FR, 1FR, 1FR. So the width didn't change, but the heights changed a lot. In fact, it grew in heights 10 times, at least in my screen. And so that translates to a DH of 10.791 and a bunch of sixes, which is evil.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm going to apply those to everything.
Yeah. And so another thing to note in the JavaScript, we're doing two things. We're setting those, like you saw, the DX, DY, DW, DH. We're setting those directly to the last elements as CSS custom properties. And we're also adding the dataset flipping attribute. And we're setting it to true, which oddly enough, literally just sets it to true, like the string true. So you're going to have data set or data dash flipping equals quotes true end quotes. And so to get rid of that, you would delete last data set flipping. And we delete that data attribute of data flipping on the next animation frame. And that's because on the first one, we wanted to immediately go to that spot and apply those those inversions, the dx, the dy, the dw, and the dh. So we give it a chance to go to its last spot, but pretend that it's in the first spot. And then once we remove that data flipping attribute, then it transitions. Basically, all of those inversions, the dx, dy, dw, dh, go from whatever value they're at to 0. And you're going to see what effect that has over here. And we're also going to make it a little bit more clear. Shaw's setting that up right now. We are translating dx, dy, and
let's do that just for now. Get that working. Oh, we need to set a duration.
Yeah.
Second. Oh. Okay, let's just simplify. Transition form. Second linear.
There you go. So then do anything.
Data flipping. Be applied. Let's background red.
All right, so last L. All right, so you know what? We are going to use what I used, or what I wrote here. I have a set timeout. That's going to wait an entire second for it to go from having that data. Whoa, it just flies out. Okay, great. I wonder why I did that. Let's try this again. All right, it just flies out. Oh no, it goes really, really fast actually.
Yeah, it's not transitioning.
You know what? I think, well, let's see. Transform, translate. Let's also add transform none to the notification. Or wait, no, yeah, it's not there. So, all right, so we, do you see the flash of red? Because it's definitely doing a flash of red.
Yeah,
so
I do see that. So that's good. What we want.
So calc 1 pix times var. Okay, I'm opening the debug panel, seeing what's going on over here. So we do have those data attributes being set there. What I'm also going to do is open the animation panel too, just to see what's going on. That's weird. There is an animation. It's super fast though. Or well, it's not fast. It is lasting a second, but it just doesn't show it's being applied. Huh.
That's strange. Okay, let's go back to this set timeout, but just do just to make sure getting applied.
Yeah, try narrative. It is doing some weird stuff. So let's see. First red, get red. Last L, last red. That's so weird.
Does it have anything flipping there? It shouldn't have anything to do with the grid layout because it's just using the get rect values that were.
So here, I'm going to set this back to 1,000 and we're going to see, so click.
Oh, okay. Transition none on data flipping.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay. that was the whole reason we we made it go and request animation frame in the first place. Okay, so yeah, we'll just make notes to explain that. So that works. Looks terrible, but it works.
It looks beautiful, David. I don't.
Okay.
So let's. This is a technique that we've been working on using CSS variables for transitions. Property transform, set duration, second, set. We still never settle on ease or easing.
Oh, we did.
I haven't.
Ease refers. All right, fine. Ease refers to a specific type of easing.
Yes.
Think easing function, not ease function.
Hey, look at that. That's already 1,000 times better. And
Nice.
So yeah, we can go ahead and add in the scale if we wanted to, and then we can show how to that actually perform it. So essentially, we'll do the same thing here. Var w x first. Var h. That should scale everything. Nope. Or don't we have to do a mathy thing? Do before.
Whoa. Yeah, so for the scale, oh yeah, you have to set the transform origin to top left. Make sure you do that.
Ah, sure.
Yeah.
Important.
And that's because calculating it from top left is how getRect works, how pretty much everything works. So center is just awkward.
Let's invert that. There we go.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
Scale there, dw.
Right, because it should be the.
No, it's going the other way. So you have to do calc 1 divided by.
Right.
dw.
I couldn't remember if that's what we did last time.
Sure. That's what it is. Yeah, there we go. See that?
Nice.
Nice. All right, so add some text in there because I saw some warped text, and that's a very important point that I want to talk about. For sure. So stretchy. Stretchy, especially when you're going from big to small.
Yeah. So what do we do, David?
Spoiler alert, we've solved this like tens of times, dozens of times.
Yes.
But the solution is not what you're going to see in the popular flip libraries of today, like Framer Motion, because it refers to, or the libraries prefer not having extra elements. And we say, you know, elements are cheap. This is not that bad. And in fact, I'm sure if you look at the implementation details of Android's shared layouts, which is basically the way that Android does flip, or SwiftUI's new matched geometry. I think that's what it's called. Basically, you could do the flip technique with SwiftUI, and it provides a very, very easy way to do it. It's basically a one-liner. I'm sure that it doesn't do this whole let's just transform the entire element and then untransform the children. That gets complicated really quick. So instead, we animate just the background layer. And so you see, we've solved the problem of the children not getting scaled weirdly, but they sort of jump. So that introduces a new problem.
Yeah. So right now we're doing the entire animation on the BG element. So the text itself isn't actually animating or doing anything. So this is where we were talking about splitting the animation up into a couple of different pieces. So we can change this from targeting just the BG there. Split out this transform to go to transform. Add in there. Add another.
Yep.
You did.
Mm-hmm. You can never have too many. Actually, you can. I'm also going to add this just for now, just
to make it more complicated.
Yeah. But I also want to show like how when we solve one problem, we introduce another, but that's okay. Oh, you know what? Let me apply that to the entire background. So ignore this.
And want you to have same origin. There we go. Nice. And look at that. Our text scaling no problem.
Yeah. Use a little bit of padding, but that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Whatever.
So now, while Shaw was fixing a problem, I have introduced a new one. That's what I do on the show. So, can you notice the problem, or is it unnoticeable?
I can see it.
Yeah, it's a border radius.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to fix that little border radius issue too, and we're going to do so using some math. No more JavaScript. We can do this.
JavaScript?
No.
Please, David. Please.
We can do this just using math, and the way that we do it. Hold on, let me go to my cheat sheet over here. Oh my gosh, this is nasty, but it's gonna work. So border radius. Basically, we're doing this. This is shorthand for something. I think this is the X portion of the border radius. So basically, if you look at each corner in isolation, there's two parameters of the radius that you have to keep in mind. There's the horizontal part and the vertical part. So I think what comes before the slash is the horizontal part. What comes after the slash is the vertical part, which is why these calculations make sense. If we're warping by dw, like let's say the dw is 10, and basically we want to scale that border radius, so we could, instead of one rem, it's actually our radius. We want to scale each component of that corner radius too, or border radius, each corner's radius. You know what I'm talking about. Basically, we're reverse scaling the X and Y components of the of each of the corners. And so the way it looks is fine.
Pretty good, considering the massive amount of change happening.
Let me get rid of the red over here. It's a bit distracting. Yeah, so as you can see, it's, especially at that speed, it's barely noticeable.
Yeah, that's all.
The mailbox is shifting a little bit.
Not sure I've got text align center there. Off.
Yeah, there we go. So text align center. I put it in the header so that we could actually, style that a little bit better.
Yeah. Let's say here.
All right, make it a little bit bigger. Just go all tailwind on this. Cool, a little bit bigger. Looks awesome. What else can we add? Yeah. Uh-oh, what'd you do with the Y scaling?
Oh, transition property, that's... it. The radius should be 0 when it's expanded, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, so
We would just add that up here.
Yeah.
Definitely
because we still want to warp the original radii, but oh, weird. Now it's going straight to 0, so it's a little bit weird. We want it to transition to 0. So
right.
where do you have that set to 0? Right, oh, you have radius here. So that's why. Instead, let's do a border. Let's just do border radius, and then let's see what happens there. Nothing. Well, it should. Yeah, it should be put important. That's probably the worst idea. Border radius, or should it be border radius 0? No, wait. Are we putting it on the wrong thing? I'm confusing myself.
Oh, the BG.
Yes. So, yeah. There we go. So, nice and smooth. Barely tell that anything's happening. Honestly, we could straight up just do a transition on border radius. We did all sorts of math in order to make that border radius. Actually, no, just kidding. I'm going to stop myself there because we have to remember that when it's at that inverted state, the border radiuses do need to pretend that they're still the same. So that's fine for now. All right, so at this point, we've done the flip animation, but we have not solved the original problem at all, which was independent animation per axis. So I think that should actually be pretty simple to solve.
You think so?
Yeah, because right now what we're doing is we're translating both the X and Y components on the original elements. But if we move to just transforming, like, we could choose either the X or the Y on the notification components, and then transitioning the whatever the other one is, X or Y, on the background component, then we have our independent animations. So what I'm saying is we could take this right here.
Where are you?
Like,
oh
yeah. And we could just translate. Let's try this for now. So I'm just going to translate X on just the background, and we're going to translate just Y. I'm actually going to copy this and put it down here. So instead of translating both X and Y, we're just going to translate Y in this case. Get rid of this. Let's see what happens. Oh boy, that looks funny. Yeah, it's an interesting choice.
So we would have to also animate X on the header as well to get that transitioning correctly. If we wanted to adjust the easing for that, I would recommend doing X here and Y on these. That seems a little more.
All right.
And
yeah, so now we got the
header. you won't be able to apply it.
Oil again.
Interesting. It's very interesting.
Goes pretty fast.
Yeah.
That's funny. You know what? I like it. Creative decision. It gives it some character.
It certainly does. Why that?
Probably not what we're going for over here. That's fun. Wonder why that's happening.
Um,
It's like super fast. What we could probably do is use the handy animation debugger to look at this. I'll see what's happening. Wow. Okay, so the wait, no, that's not it. Both of them should be going at around the same rate.
yeah, it's fixed now.
Oh.
Should be.
I was like, wow.
At least.
Yeah, no, it definitely looks fixed. Okay, so we separated them, and so now we have the parents component doing the translate X part of the animation, and so we could play around with things like the duration or the probably not the duration, but you know, the timing function of that, which you said I can't change here.
Well, you don't want to change it in the data flipping.
Oh, right.
You want to change it. And so one thing I changed here, so using duration 0 seconds instead of transition none, because we're using CSS variables for all that, that now applies to everything underneath it for this data flipping state. So that gives a really
Oh, okay, cool. Check it out. It's there you go. There's your independent animation.
Yeah. So to override, you can do it directly so that the CSS variables don't apply to everything. So you can see we still have our fancy ease on the children, but the...
You think mine's not fancy? Fine, let me get fancy. What do you have? 0.6, 0.2, 1. Okay, so I'll do 0.1, 0, 0.2, 1. Or we could make it like, let's go like make it shoot up at the end. So we could just have this be like 1, 1. So basically you have that be all the way at the very end. Or something like that. So we should probably do 1.5. Oh. Anyway, you can get pretty creative with that.
That is silly.
It's pretty silly, yeah.
So I like to lower final, something like that, and maybe we make it really slow. Start. Oh geez, not that slow. If you're not familiar with Bezier curves, they're really fun to play around with, but just messing with the numbers, you don't always get a full sense of like what you're doing. So cubic.com is a great spot to kind of play around with these little handles and see.
Or you could even open up the DevTools itself and all right. So I like this one, 0.80, 0.81. maybe.
Maybe for the
Or
others.
0.9.
Let's try that as
oh, wait a minute. So right now, so I was looking at the Y components.
right.
That was my problem.
Yeah, so if we apply this here, that should feel interesting.
Wow. That, yeah, no. Definitely character, and this show's all about character.
A little bit better. Yeah.
Just giving it a little bit of a shadow.
Yeah, and we can change the ease depending on the state that it's in as well.
Oh, yeah, that's true. See, it's one of the good things about stateful styles is you can do that.
Here.
So I'm guessing we want to invert this right here.
Something like that.
Oops. There you go. Nothing happened. So maybe not change that. But...
yeah, this is going to be, let's see, but prominent. Probably a bit slower here. Oh. Let's see.
Wasn't our very first keyframers also a You Got Mail?
Yeah,
sort of thing?
We did do that.
So nostalgic.
This is a spot where just tweaking those is good to play around with. Find a decent stopping point for that. Due to the text size.
I am playing with it. Here we go.
Sure. Column. Cute.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm digging it.
Although, the X and Y don't look independency anymore. What
Yeah,
happened to
they aren't.
Yeah, let's give it some character. Honestly, any one of these, any ones will work.
coming out of large is really nice.
Yeah.
That one. So it's the Y animation. So that's.
Hello, everyone joining us. Looks like it jumped up to 24 people, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Right now, we are finalizing the animation because we finished it pretty quickly, actually. What we were doing is we were doing a, I don't know, what do you call it, the self-imposed challenge. Basically, we're taking one of Framer Motions or Matt Perry's animations that he did for Framer Motion and saw what we could do with vanilla JavaScript. Obviously, if you're using React, then Framer Motion is a fantastic way to go. It's made by the same people behind Pop Motion Pose, if you're familiar with those libraries, and also the people working on Framer, which is one of the best, I guess, animation prototyping tools. I guess it does a lot more than that, but we are not sponsored by them. But if they do want to give us money, then that's cool too. Yes, yeah.
Okay. I got some decent ones in there. That's actually feeling quite nice. The border radius stuff is a little funky on the leave.
Yeah, it is. What we could do is, in order to tweak that, we could probably set a different transition timing or transition duration just for the border radius.
Well, I think it's more that it's going from 0 to instantly radius to VH with the CSS variable. So we could say something data flipping. Data 8 large G. Let's write it in that way. All right. Well, we can leave that as an exercise for the viewers. We dive a lot more into the border radius transition in this episode that we have linked in the description, so you should check that out. That shows some really great transitions between border radii, radon.
Radius.
Awesome. Okay, so we've got some fun things happening in this animation. If you're watching us live, we're gonna kind of start summarizing the animation. But we're doing it in a way that we break these out into smaller videos. So stick with us. You'll get some good information from that. But yeah, check it out. And if you want more on all of these, you can go back and watch the full thing. But what should we break down from this one, David?
So there's a few things to break down. I mean, the entire flip technique for one. I also added a data inspect thing over here to show. But yeah, so flip with CSS variables, we could go through that. And we could also go through the independence transform animations. And also, actually, yeah, number one is going to cover a lot of things. So
yeah, independent transforms, and then probably go over the animation.
Which part?
Animating with or transitioning with CSS variables.
Yeah.
And that'll actually feed into a lot of the other things. So I can start off with that, go into flip for how we're actually getting that, and then go from there.
All right.
Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's do the intro for these videos real quick, and then get right to it.
All right.
Hola, amigos, and welcome to Keyframers. I'm your host, Stephen Shaw, but you may know me as @Shashaw.
And I'm your host, Khourshid, also known as @DavidKPiano.
Right now, we're giving a quick overview of some techniques used to build this animation. Our show is supported by our sponsors, CodePen at codepen.io, CSS Tricks at css-tricks.com, and viewers like you. You can pledge at patreon.com/keyframers. Links are available below, so check it out.
Mm-hmm. And hey, you could also watch the full process of creating this animation from scratch with a deeper dive into each technique. So check out the live stream. And if you have any questions, leave a comment or ask in the chat, and we're going to be happy to answer.
Yes. All right. So we've got a lot going on in this You've Got Mail animation. We'll start out covering a technique for transitioning using CSS variables. So around line 55, we have this universal selector, and we're giving everything transition properties based on CSS variables with some slight defaults. So what this allows us to do is override 4 specific elements, but also cascade the types of transforms that we want to do. Because in this animation, we have a lot of the same kind of properties being animated. We have the same duration being animated, and so we want those to basically trickle down. And so this is a great way to do that. So we've got a CSS variable for the property that we want to be animated. So opacity, transform, color, whatever. Duration, we're defaulting to 0 seconds. We don't want a transition time by default, and we're also doing none there for the transition property. And then we can add a delay and a specific ease if we want, using those CSS variables. So here in our BG element, we've got a property for transform and border radius because we're transitioning those things. And here in the notification element, we've got transform and opacity, and then we're setting the duration for those and a default ease. And those cascade down to the background and the header, so that if we do any kind of transitioning on those, it'll start with those as its defaults, which is really cool. You can be a lot more targeted about this. You don't have to do like everything like that, but this can be a nice way for especially smaller projects to help coordinate animations and get them easily customizable just by changing one or two things. But if you're interested in learning more about the full technique and how we're actually applying a lot of those transitions using the flip technique, you should go back and check out the full live stream video, and we'll take a deep dive into all of that. So check that out. All right, let's see. Flip CSS variables. Take that away.
Sure. All right, so we're using something called the flip technique over here in order to get that layouts transition from the bottom left to the right. I'm just going to say the top right, but it's the entire right corner. And we're using the flip technique, which was coined by Paul Lewis. You could look at arrowtwist.com if you want an early article on just the beginnings of the flip technique. We'll have a link there for you soon. But flip stands for first, that's the F, last, invert, play. So essentially what we're doing in the JavaScript is we're taking the first element, which is this first L over here, grabbing what the first rect is. And this getRect is just a function that calls getBoundingClientRect on that first element. And so we're capturing the first rectangle. Then we're doing something. And so you could just consider this sort of a callback where you do whatever happens that changes the layout and potentially causes that first element to change position, or for another element to, I guess, appear or do something. So then we grab that last element, which is that get last L over here. By default, we're just returning the first element. This is assuming that that we don't have two different elements. We're just changing the position of the first element. And we calculate the delta between the last rectangle and the first rectangle. So this dx represents how far it traveled on the x-axis. dy is how far it traveled on the y-axis. dw is the proportion from the last width to the first width, and dh is the proportion of the last heights to the first heights. Basically, we're trying to track, did it grow, how much did it grow by? And we're also going to track how much did the position move by. We're also going to set a data flipping attribute. I'll put that here. This is data flipping equals, it's going to be the string true. And we're doing that because since we're setting the CSS variables, dx, dy, dw, dh, directly on the element, we want it to immediately appear both in the second position, the last position, and pretending that it was in the first position. And we do that in the CSS, which I'll talk about in a minute. But after one animation frame, after it immediately transitions basically nowhere, it's an illusion, we want to get rid of that data flipping attribute so that we could use CSS and transition smoothly from whatever it's inverted to 0. And this will make a little bit more sense. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to say set timeout. And we're going to do this in a set timeout instead, just so that you could see what's going on. So I'm going to copy this here, and we'll do this after a second. And let's see what happens. So when you click, all right. So when you click, it's not moving anywhere because it's inverting itself to the original position. And I guess it's not too clear over here, but yeah.
Yeah, so this is our CSS. Whenever this data flipping attribute is applied, we use those CSS variables to make it look like it's in the first state. So we've got these split up into independent transforms, which makes it look a little more complex than it is. But we'll break that down in another. But for instance, we've got the transform translate x here. If I comment out all of this other stuff, you can see exactly how that applies. So we're just transitioning the x. So it's pretending that it's in its former position using that x value. And then we're also doing a translate y using that dy value to get it to up and down into the proper position. And then our separate BG element also has some of those variables applied for the translate x, but then using those proportional variables that David talked about to scale it to the right size.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there's honestly a lot to talk about here. I encourage you to look at one of our past videos where we go into this in a little bit more depth. In fact, I could find the link for that.
Yes. So the flip transition with CSS variables and Borderradius, we've got that linked down in the description. You should definitely check that one out. We go into a lot of detail about flip throughout a lot of our episodes, but this one is a good one where we're using this technique with CSS variables. So if you want to learn more, check out that other video for this one, and then watch the full live stream. We've got a more complete breakdown of there. All right. Number 3, independent transforms. Break that down a little.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me just mute my thing. Okay, so independent transforms. The original challenge of this, if you saw the last video where or one of the last videos where we did this flip animation with the Plan 1, Plan 2 video, you can see that both the X and Y axis are animating at the same time. But for this one, we wanted to focus on the challenge of doing independent transforms. So if you play around with this animation, you'll see that the Y axis moves at a different way, different rates than the X axis. And so how do we do that?
Well,
Well,
David, tell us.
I will tell you exactly how. The way that we're doing this is we are using different elements. So we have the notification element, which is sort of this, you could consider it a container for everything that goes into this notification, this you got mail thing, but we're also animating the background elements too. Now, originally, if you look earlier into the live stream here, you'll notice that we were animating everything on the background elements. However, we moved that to animating just the, what did we do? We animated just the X parts on the notification elements, and then we animated the Y parts on the background elements. And since we did that, we could split those transforms, and we could specify a different timing function for each one of those. And so that gives us a really cool effect of just having sort of that curved motion. And you get that sort of for free just because of how those two different timing functions interplay with each other.
Yeah. And an important part of independent transforms is actually multiple elements. That's why we have this BG element, so that we can do the scaling without distorting the text. So the BG element here has the scale applied to it that makes it look like the element's changing its proportions when it's actually it is the size that it ends up being, but we stretch it out and make it look like it's the proper size. And then we can adjust the easing for each of the elements to help give that effect. So that's what you see in the CSS here. But yeah, unfortunately, you can't like independently animate specific aspects of a transform, like the scale and the X separately, without doing separate elements. So we discourage div soup, but if you've got a complex animation, you might have to suffer through a little bit of div wrapping of things.
Yeah, there was some sort of proposal or something where Chrome actually did implement some sort of independent transform thing. I'm not sure how far that got, but yeah.
Yeah, looking forward to that for the future, being able to do the transform functions independently, like as direct properties, but you'll still have some limitations there that aren't as flexible as just applying a transform directly, like the order in which the functions are applied. So this technique will still be useful and after that. So anyway, if you'd like to learn more about that, we do a full deep dive in the live stream, so go back and check that out, and also look at some of our other flip animation videos. We've got some really great information on this in the description, so check that out.
Yeah. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to see more, you could support us by pledging at patreon.com/keyframers.
Yes. We have all of our videos available at youtube.com/keyframers, so subscribe and smash that like button, ding the bell, and enjoy all of our great content there. But that's all we have for you today. Thank you all so much for watching, and it's live. Until next time, adios, amigos.
Adios.